Hotep family, and welcome to the Melanated MAATIAN show. I am your host, Asar Ngozi Kunakti Sarah. Today's show is an introduction show in which you will have an opportunity to get to know a little bit about what we're about. The Melanated MAATIAN is a spiritual community-based organization whose primary focus is the spiritual formation, unification, education, and application of collective economics. With that said, I will also be prefacing the ancestor Dr. Amos Wilson's work, The Psychology of Cooperative Economics. Again, Hotep brothers and sisters, and welcome.
I'm relinquished for the flame, and now I walk in my Ma'atian way. The worldview has changed. We're living in mind wrong today. You can see that I am a son. We originate from the life of the falling star. So the charting stars. Since the beginning of time. Since the beginning of time. My frequencies can you vibe with me? Yes, it's time, 'cause they live inside of me.
Spiritual formation. There is a reason we are so great in potential, and that reason is melanin. We are not black, brown, or anyone's color for that matter. We are melanated beings of this universe. This understanding is the underlying principle that fuels one to become their better selves. Science taught that melanin was merely a waste product and had no function. And this truly is not the case. Melanin is the key to life, and the ancestors knew this, for they were practicing medicine and mastered the melanated body in ways we have yet to only understand. Why are the melanated so spiritual? Well, according to Carol Barnes' 1988, the melanated man and woman are blessed by nature in that he or she is endowed with melanin. This distinguishes the melanated man and woman from any other species in that we tend to have higher number of organs and body systems that contain melanin in high concentrations. With that said, Dr. Africa tells us that we can work against ourselves by adopting culture that is not our own, which is anti-melanin. This is why we must hurry up and enact the collective lifestyle necessary for our growth. Let's listen to what the ancestor Dr. Amos has to say about melanin.
The color of our skin represents a long, deep, ancient history. The reason we are the color we are is the result of the historical and cultural experiences of our people. We carry in our genes the total history of African people. Our children contain in their genes not just the programs that determine how tall they will be or how heavy they will be or these other physiological characteristics, but they contain the total history of African people, political, social, biological, and otherwise. And we must keep this in mind. And that history is not a duplicate of any other people's history. And therefore, to understand our children and to understand ourselves, we must understand our history and our bodies. And our bodies are not the duplicates of European bodies. Therefore, we cannot study the European body, nor the nutritioning of that body as a source for the proper nutrition of our own bodies to fit the needs of our own bodies. We must know ourselves. Our children, just as our ancestors were the first to walk on the face of this earth, to talk first, to organize politically and socially, to organize social relations and so forth, you will see that our children walk earlier, talk earlier, their bones grow faster, their teeth grow faster. As a matter of fact, they are born intellectually in advance of the white child. The black child comes on this earth doing things on the very first and second day of life it takes the average white child 4 to 6 months to do. So we are not talking about a duplicate.
That's right, brothers and sisters. We are not talking about a duplicate. The melanated man and woman is a distinction different than that of the white race. The recommended daily allowances that we see on many vitamin bottles and foods that we purchase, these recommended daily allowances do not apply to us. According to Dr. Layla Africa, we need at least double of that which is prescribed for consumption in which to nourish our melanin. In my travels throughout the United States, I've been and lived in Atlanta, New York, as well as California. And one thing that I have noticed as a distinct precursor to malnourishment of melanin is that of hyperacusis. Many brothers and sisters have damaged the melanin to a point that they are now suffering from hyperacusis. What is hyperacusis? Hyperacusis is where one who once had a normal tolerance for sound and noise no longer has that tolerance for sound and noise. For example, normal sound at low frequency, such as a pin drop, a click, paper ruffling, a cough. For the normal person, these things does not have an effect of any type. But for the person whose melanin has been damaged, these noises and sounds create a flight or fight reaction in those suffering from hyperacusis. So now the clapping of the hands creates a startle response in those who suffer from hyperacusis. And this is a direct cause from the malnourishment of our melanin. So you see, brothers and sisters, it is necessary that we get together and start learning about ourselves. And we can't do it in the current climate that we find ourselves in today. We're so divided. We're so individualistic in our aims and ideals that it doesn't allow for us to do the work necessary for us to get to the next level. And before I close on this spiritual formation, I want to take some quotes from Dr. Layla Africa's book as it relates to the psychology and differences between black and white races. According to Dr. Africa, the black race equally uses right and left hemispheres of the brain and midbrain, while the white race does not. They're characterized by unholistic, egotism, illogical use of the left mind. They're non-spiritual. They bring about the individualism that many melanated have adopted. They have irrational rationalizations and are non-creative. In the melanated race, the midbrain characterized by equal balance of rational thought and creative thought. In the white race, rationales based upon conflict between evil, subconscious, and good conscious. It is a military logic and a predator nature. And third, for the melanated race, time exists in now and is eternal and cyclic. Future, past, and present are combined. For the white race, there is no present tense of life. Life exists in the past and future. This results in time conflicts and places no value on the present. So you see, brothers and sisters, although we bleed, as many would say, the same red blood, the contents of our bodies as it relates to the genetic makeup is totally different. So if the medical community is that of the white race, and we go to the white race for healing our bodies based on recommended daily allowances and medical systems designed specifically for the white race, how can that be of help to us? This is something that we really have to think about, brothers and sisters. And for us here at the Melanated Maatian, this is why it is extremely important that we come together, unify, and create the community necessary for us to be successful moving forward. Brothers and sisters, many of us are still institutionalized. And this institutionalization is a hindrance to our progress. On the topic of economics, more recently, cryptocurrency has hit the market, and everyone that is knowledgeable about crypto and some of the ideas that some of the producers are promising to affect the blockchain with, brothers and sisters are investing 90 going north. However, when a brother puts up his white paper or his idea or his goal on YouTube, the brothers watch, the sisters watch, the sisters listen, the brothers listen. However, there is no real change taking place. What we here at the Melanated MAATIAN have produced is two concepts. One concept is specifically for California, and it may be able to be applied to other states that allow food trucks. In California, the food truck trend is huge, and we plan to purchase a fleet of food trucks. Our first food truck we are looking to secure in the summer of 2018, which will generate, based on our projections, approximately $350,000 to $400,000 a year. The cost of this food truck and necessary tools to make it all come together is $89,000. Now, if 1,000 men came together and donated $100, that would give us $100,000. In turn, that will give us an income of about $400,000 at the end of the year. We can take that $100,000, reinvest it into a concept, or even set up the very concept that we initially invested in for one of the brothers or sisters that invested in the idea. Our second venture is a national detail business, which for the most part we're already operating in California. However, we will be able to franchise this opportunity to any brother and sister looking for an opportunity to become self-employed. The startup costs for the detailing opportunity is in between $800 to $1,500. And we will be able to guarantee bookings no matter what state you live in. So you see, brothers and sisters, we do have concrete ideas that need resources. We know that dreams unfulfilled are generally because of a lack of resources. Not many of us are sitting on equity in a house to the effect that we can walk into a bank and get this kind of money. So we must be able to come together to create the things that we need in our community, brothers and sisters. It's not that I'm asking you for money so that I can go buy some gators or so I can go buy materialistic things that everyone can see. This is not the case. I don't want your money for that. I need donations to help create a life for brothers and sisters who are without a life. You know, many say, what you need donations for? What you need donations for this for? Well, I have spent approximately 15 hours thus far putting this presentation together. Man, this takes works. And my hat goes off to all those content creators that are out there creating content, because this is not an easy task. You have to research. You have to become in tune with the software that you're using so that you can create the best product. And this thing, it really takes time, brothers and sisters. And if you enjoy any of it, or if you get anything from any of it, then why wouldn't you support and donate? You know, many attitudes are, I don't want to put no money in his pocket. That's that institutional mind state speaking, brothers and sisters, when you know that we can't get anywhere without collective economics. As I mentioned before, we make many individual accomplishments that really have no greater effect for our greater community. So, with that being said, if you're interested in the business plan or would like to see the business plan for the food truck or the detail business, then shoot me an email and I'll be happy to send that over to you. With that being said, we're going to take a listen and close out with another excerpt from Brother Dr. Amos Wilson and his views on collective economics and some of the things that we need to do to start preparing these kids to be the soldiers of tomorrow.
What would happen if we truly loved each other deeply? If we could truly and unsubconsciously identify ourselves as Africans all over this world. And if we truly then could act in a collective unity based on that collective identity, it would be over, ladies and gentlemen. The European is only 10% of the world's population. You must recognize that in order for this 10% of the world's population to rule the other 90%, the other 90% must be out of their minds. Yes. A true black psychology under oppression must begin with the acknowledgement that in order for us to be in the position we are in, we literally have to be crazy. And I'm not being rhetorical. We couldn't be in our right minds. We couldn't be at the center of ourselves. We couldn't be in full knowledge of reality and fully connected to each other and be in the position we're in. We could only be in the position we're in because we are conflicted and divided and have problems with identity and have problems with love and have problems with being reliable in relationship to one another, have problems being trustworthy in our relationships and so forth. And consequently, because if we could be trustworthy in the fullest sense and loving and reliable and fully identified with each other and so forth, this would overthrow the powers that be. You will see then our children and our people having the greatest problems in these areas. So then it becomes incumbent on a black psychology to see how the European then promotes the creation of the kind of consciousness that exists in us today. Once you recognize how that is done, and once you recognize what abilities and orientations have to be removed from our people or impaired in our people in order for the status quo to exist, then you're ready to write an educational program. Then you're ready to write a program in terms of how to rear your children. And then you'll recognize that equal education and all the other nonsense you hear out here is of no account whatsoever. We need a total reorganization of systems and values. We, in the black on black violence, I think you'll find an approach that's somewhat unusual. Here we are talking about the psychodynamics of black annihilation, self-annihilation, in service of white domination. Here I try to explain that the behavior of black on black criminals, particularly the violent ones, and black on black violence in general, even that of suicide, has been created and manipulated by this system. And I try to indicate that this criminality and this violence is manipulated in a way as to maintain white domination. I talk about what I call the American dilemma. How do you as a nation project the image of liberalism and at the same time maintain oppression? You see, and that's a dilemma, and this is what this country faces. How can you say we're getting better and our system is becoming non-racial and non-discriminating and the whole bit, and at the same time keep a people in a lower position? Of course, the answer to that is that the people must appear to destroy themselves. And you will see then the communities filled with what we call self-destructive behavior. It's a game. It's a game, and we have to understand what that game is. Don't be deceived by the election of politicians. Don't be deceived by the appointment of black men and women to high position in this society. Don't mistake me. I don't mean you don't have to go for it, but don't be deceived by it. Ladies and gentlemen, during the Carter administration, the whole thing that's going on in America was laid right out, ABC fashion. ABC. And the scenarios being followed right through. How, they say, are we going to maintain Africa under our control? And how are we going to cut off the African continent from the African Americans in such a way as to maintain dominance over both populations? And they laid it out. We're going to get more black elected officials. We're going to get more blacks appointed to office. We're going to get more blacks appointed to high position in industry and so forth, because these blacks will defend the system. They will act and think that they have a stake in the system. And I often tell young college students that you're being educated to put a black face on white power. You have to understand that. Because when you look at it in depth, ladies and gentlemen, there are what I call European constants. Certain basic relationships we have with Europeans have not changed for the last 400 or 500 years. And there is no intention for them to change. The only thing that will change will be the surface, and there will be cosmetic changes. As a matter of fact, all of the changes we see today and we think of as progress are changes to maintain the system. And you must be able to look through the glitter. You see, that's one of the reasons why black children must have problems in abstract thinking. Why black children must have problems in conceptual thinking and critical thinking skills, so that they can be deceived by the apparent, by the superficial, and not see behind the surface. And I'll talk to you later in a minute or two about why our children must be impulsive and lack self-control. This system economically depends upon the lack of control in our people. It depends upon impulsive behavior in our children. Must recognize that. It needs that kind of behavior and creates it. It creates the inability to delay gratification. There's a lot of money made on blacks' inability to delay gratification. There's a lot of power made when a person can't think between here and next week, because then he can't plot the overthrow of his enemy next year or 10 years down the road. It is all connected, ladies and gentlemen, but we can't keep going with it today. We'll work on that at another time. Perhaps when the book comes out, we'll get through with it. But you have to understand, nothing is created in this system by accident. Nothing at all. And the problems you see are created problems, and they function. I'll look a bit now at the psychology of cooperative economics in the African American community. And before I get there, I'll just look at the issue of why economic development, which I'm going to talk a bit about today. Because often when we think about economic development, we think about jobs. And we have a job mentality as a people. One of the reasons, too, our children fail in school is we give them no transcendent reasons for being in school beyond go to school and get a job. I'm telling you, that is a very damaging bit of advice, because it limits the perspectives of your children. Our children exist more than for getting a job. That is still a servant's mentality. And I'm telling you, we still have the same basic relationship to Europeans that our great slave grandfathers and grandmothers had to the European masters. And that is what? Working for their profit. And that has not changed one bit. Simply because we may be in computer technology or, some of these other sophisticated things, the relationship is the same. Still making money for whom? Somebody else. Don't forget that slaves were highly skilled, by the way. There was more than just a division between house slaves and field slaves. There were all kinds of skills that slaves had. Iron workers and ship builders and millwrights. In fact, at the end of slavery, there were more black skilled workers than there were white workers. So, ladies and gentlemen, we never lacked skills, even under slavery. And we never lacked a variety of skills. So the idea now that we have a variety of jobs that we haven't done before does not change the fundamental relationship at all.
Hotep, brothers and sisters. If my frequency moves you, compels you in any type of way to assist with some of the things that we've talked about thus far, so be it. It is greatly appreciated. As you know, I am the melanated MAATIAN, Asar Ngozi Kunakti Sarah. With that said, I am a spiritual creator by nature. Everything you hear and see, I create. With that said, music is my passion. And if you like what you hear, feel free to support. More importantly, if you too are a creative and would like to create synergistic energy, then let's get it. If there's a topic that you would like to discuss, leave your ideas in the comment section and let's talk about it. We need a team in 2018. Brothers and sisters, we can't do anything divided. Let's get it. I'm reaching out.